Adapted from a teleplay, 12 Angry Men is a drama, the story of 12 jurors having to deal with their role, to decide if a young man accused of murder is guilty or not guilty. If proven guilty, the accused will be given the death penalty, but if there are grounds for reasonable doubt, then they need to agree in the not guilty verdict. The problem starts when it's pointed out that the verdict needs to be unanimous, and from all the 12, only one of the jurors insists in the not guilty verdict when everyone else not only is sure of their votes, but want to wrap this fast and go home. Said juror not only feels that there is something amiss in the case and how it was presented, but now he wants to face all the others, convincing every single one to rethink the case and cast away their personal biases and twisted lenses. And this is a movie that happens in a single room where the jurors will discuss the fate of the accused. At best, there are some scenes happening in the adjacent bedroom and some shots of the courthouse and the outside. But like a theater play, everything important will happen on a single locale. This means that, in order to not end up in a dull repetitive affair, the director, Sidney Lumet, had to be creative with the camera work. You see lots of the tricks of the trade. Zooms, pans, long scenes, sudden shifts in camera angles, nothing overly complex or fancy like Dutch angles, but still quite efficient. Whoever is speaking will be the one in focus, complete focus more often than not, then shifting to the reactions of the other jurors. This is also a slow burner of the movie. The director wanted the audience to be as frustrated as the jurors, so there won't be any frantic action or a lot of violence nor quick shots. After all, we are here to see people discuss a case, and remember, there is a life on the line, so it's best to not go with constant shootouts. But luckily, this is all very well paced. While there won't be any guns firing, the long discussions always end up somewhere, be it with tempers flaring, the satisfaction of seeing a juror agreeing for a change of vote, so the slow pace and boiling tension always has somewhere to escape. While nothing bombastic, it's still quite efficient, good, and as usual with these movies of the past, sadly rarely replicated nowadays. Another interesting point is the attention to dress up each juror in a way that the wardrobe tells the part of the story in a show-don't-tell way. You have the white collars, the blue collars, the handy workers, and so on, all shown through sharp suits, rugged vests, and different kinds and styles of hats. And if you want a small movie about a specific group of people, you need to make damn sure that the focal characters are played by good actors. Luckily, the casting crew did find a nice set of actors for one hell of a job. My first fare seeing Henry Fonda on screen was in Once Upon a Time in the West. Man, I need to make a review of that movie. So, I've only seen him in a more contained expression in acting, and I didn't understand why everyone was shocked to see him acting as a villain. Well, here I could see a whole range of his acting, and I gotta admit, he was really good. His character is the juror that seeks to establish a verdict as clear of misunderstandings, no personal biases and such as he can, regardless of it being guilty or not guilty. And as his character says, the life of a person is at their hands and they shouldn't make light of it. In his quest, the juror goes through a whole range of emotions depending on what he's dealing and who he's dealing with at the moment. He'll toughen up and be hard against people who just want to shout, and will try to be amiable and reasonable towards people who just want to clarify some points. And every single time, Fonda plays his role very well. The rest of the cast doesn't stay behind either. And while their characters aren't exactly complex, they aren't necessarily shallow, offering interesting depth for twists clear in their intent and personalities expressed well through their actors. There are some genuinely touching moments that come from twists carried by the acting, especially from Lee J. Cobb, who plays the juror number 3, but overall the cast, barring one or two that felt a bit half-baked and unsure, are quite good and solid. I've seen people describing this movie as a courtroom drama. I don't know if it would qualify since it's just a group of jurors talking among each other trying to reach a conclusion. Evidence is checked and rechecked, requests are made, but the group literally interacts with the judge once and never with the accused. It's definitely a drama though, and this movie seems to be crystal clear in its purpose. that those with the power on their hands should give it the proper respect it deserves. It doesn't try to make a stand pro or con against death penalties, but there is a lot happening in the background, given through hints in characterization. While some of the jurors will downright tell the others and thus the audience who they are and what they are never called by name, and each one has something to bring to the table and be discussed in order to change their opinion on the verdict. And through these discussions, the themes of racism, poverty, familial bonds, prejudices, and more are explored one by one. Tempers flare, opinions are exposed, and each one of them discusses with Fonda's juror about what is really happening behind their opinions. And one of the things that makes this movie work so well is the balance in characterization. As stated before, each character isn't unnecessarily complex, but also isn't shallow either. They are linked to, but not defined by their professions. The logical stockbroker, the empathetic paramedic from the slums, hell, even the protagonist is an architect. And one important notion to reinforce is that the protagonist constantly reminds everyone, including the audience, that all he wants is a clear argument that is sufficient to make him change his mind. And he's against the levity of all other jurors and the biases on the case. He might be letting a real murderer go, but what he wants is a clear conscience that he tried and did his best to reach a conclusion. But in this desire, he solidifies his stance against the empty rhetoric, threats, or shouting. And this is the crux and the development of this movie. How can one man turn 11 others to reason? It's an interesting tug-of war where everything is used, from logical traps, casual conversation, and passionate speeches. This makes what seems to be a simple afternoon of people discussing events a complex game of verbal chess. Fonda's juror needs to dig each person to know how to make them tick, but not to manipulate them, and this is important, but rather to see their vision is unclouded, and if it is, how to remove those biases, and if it isn't, to see if their logic is solid. While not as bombastic or impassionate as other movies, the premise is interesting and the development is just as impressive. It's rare to see or think about nowadays. Of course, it won't be for everyone's tastes, especially since it has some points that most people nowadays would find iffy, like violence against kids. It's slow, it's methodical, and mostly focused on raising points through dialogues. But for those who enjoy some well-acted drama that raises some provoking points to think about, it's a good recommendation. There isn't much soundtrack to talk about, interestingly. Most of the movie doesn't have music in its background, thus, in order for the audience to focus on what's going on and what's being said. At most, there are some pieces during the start and at the end. It's another example of efficient usage of resources. After all, why cram a lot of music in a movie mostly focused on dialogues? And I really think that this movie is an easy recommendation. It won't be everyone's cup of tea due to being slow, but this is still a poignant movie about the personal biases being in the way of important decisions. The visuals are simple, the acting is really good with Fonda being able to pull a calm and composed person who is frustrated with biases. The writing is a story and style rarely seen nowadays, with a single room dialogue drama about someone slowly dismantle said biases and try to find the truth. And it's no wonder this movie had lots of reinterpretations through theater and a remake. But I still recommend the original. Thank you very much, that's all for today. Remember to like and subscribe, and see you all next time.